Hey, welcome to the Publish, Promote, Profit podcast with me, Rob Kosberg. Every week, I interview thought leaders and experts who have used a book to grow their income and their impact. So tune in weekly for these interviews so you can learn how to use your own best-selling book and go from hunting for clients and opportunities to instead being the hunted. All right. Hey, welcome everybody. Rob Kosberg here for another episode of the Publish, Promote, Profit podcast. I have Chris Ruden here with me today. I think you're going to love him. What an amazing, inspirational story. Chris was seen on The Rock's TV show Titan Games, which obviously, how cool is that? Who doesn't know and love The Rock? Chris is an amputee keynote speaker, best-selling author of The Upper Hand, Leveraging Limitations to Turn Adversity into Advantage, disabled pro athlete, adaptive model who uses disability as a way to inspire people to turn their adversity into advantage. Chris, I love that, and really excited to have you on the show today, my friend.
I appreciate you having me on, honestly. It's just being able to do this and listening to you say those things. I'm like, is he describing me?
Yeah,
but it's crazy how the years of work kind of stack up, you know?
I love that. I love that. Now, there's a lot to cover, or at least there's a lot on my mind. And, I think probably most people, after hearing that bio and even seeing the title of your book, they may have in their mind what they kind of envision, turning adversity into advantage means. But, those are words, and it's difficult, right? It's difficult to do anything to create an advantage, let alone to turn adversity into an advantage. Talk to me a little bit about that idea and how much, as a topic, that means to you and you see it meaning to other people.
Absolutely. So I was born with a physical disability. I was born with 2 fingers on my left hand and a shorter left arm. And I actually hid my disability for 17 years.
Wow.
Up until a few years ago. I had a glove on my residual limb, and I didn't get this until a few years ago. So for 17 years, or pretty much my whole life, I felt like I was broken. I felt like these synonyms of disability: weak, broken, useless, helpless, like any of these things. I just felt, because of the way I was born, something I never asked for,
right,
I was less than, So I felt I lived with adversity, and then I lived with it so much that I accepted it. And when we start accepting it, it starts becoming our identity. And not because adversity did this, but because we allowed it to. So when I speak on the concept of turning adversity into advantage, adversity has a negative connotation, but it doesn't need to. Right. Adversity is just our perception of what's difficult. How do I know this? I'll ask you this. I'll ask you right now. What are some emotions that come about with a flat tire? What do you feel?
Anger.
Yes. So
disappointment.
Let's go with that. I'm going to say you're actually lying. And here's why. When you pass someone on the road with a flat tire, do you feel anger?
Oh, no.
No. So it's only when it happens to us. Yeah. So it's not the adversity itself, but it's the fact that it's happening to us. So if we have the ability to change our perspective around, maybe if we look at it from a different perspective, we can turn adversity, which is negative, into advantage, which is positive. But negatives and positives only exist with the way we tell ourselves the story.
Right.
So I just decided at a certain point, 17 years later, to change the narrative.
Wow. And so, 17 years later, so I mean, you're talking about going through childhood, going through adolescence, going through, your teenage years. In one sense, this is a topic for everybody. It doesn't matter if you have a physical limitation or not, because, people grow up through all kinds of abusive situations, difficulties, divorce, death, all these things. Life itself is suffering in one sense, even though there are so many wonderful and beautiful, incredible things. How do you just decide to say, okay, I'm going to make this an advantage? Did you get pissed off one day, or, what are the emotions that led up to that? And I'm going somewhere because there are people that are thinking about their own thing, and they're like, where does it start?
You said a word, suffering, and it's probably blurred out, but that saying in the background is, we often suffer in our imagination more than we do a reality. Suffering is often, worrying in advance, or suffering in advance of things that haven't happened. I went through frustration, pain, anger, sadness, depression, really dark things, and then it just became numb.
Yeah.
And I wish there was this one Disney moment that was just like, boom, I made it. I have people ask like, how did you beat adversity? I'm like, I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting for that moment.
Right.
It's not, there's no finish line for mental health. There's no finish line for success.
Yeah.
It's the process. And I know it sounds kind of cliche, but there is no end destination, when it comes to quality of life. So there were little moments, I'll never forget. I started building my speaking business. I'm a professional speaker. That's what I do full time.
Right.
Also social media, I guess influencer. I just hate that word. But I was speaking and I was still hiding my disability. And I'll never forget, I was speaking at this event, like 2,000 people, and I'm walking down this long hallway. There's this little girl who had watched me speak. These people like came to see me speak. And I was still hiding my hand, and she grabbed my hand that I was hiding, and I was mortified. I'm just like, oh. And she looked at me and she was like swinging my hand, and she's like, it's okay. You don't have to hide around me.
Whoa.
And I was like,
this is while you were a speaker.
This is while I was a speaker. And still, this was a few years ago before I started like being open about my disability. I was like, damn, 2,000 people are here to see me speak, but this little girl is the only person that actually sees me.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, and if she could accept me, like, why can't I accept me? Like, maybe acceptance is not an external thing. Maybe it's an internal thing. So when I started like I took my glove off, I posted a YouTube video of like this coming out moment for me personally, you know? And anyone watching, like we all have some sort of glove. I wear a glove. Maybe you wear a mask. Maybe it's makeup. Maybe it's something you hide about your physicality or your past or traumas that you've had or anything, your business. Maybe your business failed. I've had more businesses fail than I can imagine. It's something. We all kind of have that thing we sweep under the rug, And when I stopped hiding, I just like started living. And I did a funny talk at St. Louis University, and I titled it Turning Health Issues into Wealth Issues.
Okay.
And talking about, I have an autoimmune disease and I have a disability, but I also have an ability to build value and impact, which turns into business, which turns into profit. So ideas are valuable, perspectives are valuable. And I'll be honest, no one cares about my story. They care about what my story does for them, just like a book, like an author.
100%.
It's not about your story. It's about the message, and your story is a vessel for the message. So I vow to be the person I never had growing up. And that's why I package my experiences into conceptual ideas that benefit other people.
Love it. Now you, as a primary speaker, as far as your business goes, it must mean that you're on the road a lot. You're traveling, going place to place. Obviously most of my clients, all my clients are authors and most of them are speakers. And so I always shudder to think about, I love my dogs. I love my house. I love my bed. I love my view. And so the idea of all of that travel, even just thinking about it, like wears on me. Have you either you super love it and are energized by the crowd, which I sense that there's a part of it, or B, have you thought about like, doing other things with your influence, with your abilities, coaching, maybe large groups, things of that nature, as far as your magic, your secret?
So I do a few things. I always wanted to be like my dream job, that secret question. I put dream job as motivational speaker. I didn't really know at the time what that meant,
Was that high school?
That was like high school. Yeah.
Wow.
And I didn't think that was like a real thing, like I got my degree in exercise science, and it was cool, but my true passion is speaking. I want to speak for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Whether it's on stages or virtual events have really opened up the door to be home and do those things. And coaching, consulting is a part of my business. Now being a published author, that's a whole new avenue. So everything kind of stemmed from speaking.
Gotcha.
But I truly do love speaking. And my ultimate goal is to create a speaker mentorship to help people communicate more effectively, to become leaders in those communities that I can't reach.
Love it. Now, that's great. See, that opens up my mind a little bit more. I mean, I think about like Michael and Amy Port are good friends of mine.
I love them. Love them.
They're fantastic. And of course, Michael, in some ways took like some failures and turned them into amazing things. Of course, he's a New York Times bestselling author, and Book Yourself Solid was kind of his big breakthrough. But now he runs Heroic Public Speaking, which is one of the biggest speaker training institutes around. So is that kind of your vision? Is having something like that and teaching people to really share their magic with the world?
That's truly what I want to do. So almost like the art of charisma and understanding how to communicate in a way that people listen.
Yeah.
Because ideas are only effective if you get people to listen. You can't sell an empty seat. You can't fill an empty mind or a mind that's not willing to listen. So I want to help people, especially people in either underserved communities or people with disabilities or adversity, turn adversity into advantage for their communities.
Yeah. Love it. Tell me, is there, everybody has like their secret sauce, if you will. And, we try to, in a book, we try to convey that in units or steps or milestones or whatever. Is there a way that you can convey somebody that is feeling discouraged because of their limitations, because of adversity, whether emotional stuff, physical stuff, disease, difficulty? How do they begin? What are these steps or milestones that you might take someone like that through to create their own advantage from the adversity?
You have to start with this. If you are practicing tennis for 10 years and then you immediately try out for the NFL, you're not going to be the best at it.
Right,
you're going to be really good at what you practice and really bad at what you don't. And a lot of people subconsciously practice not only negativity, but self-sabotage. So the first step is being aware of what you do, being mindful of what you do. So in my book, I have this 3C challenge, catch, challenge, change. And really catching the feeling that even exists, challenging it to say, am I a loser? Do I really suck? Is this really not going to work? Or is this just like a negative feedback loop trying to protect myself from potential pain of loss? And change it. Like, okay, I appreciate you, mind, for trying to protect me, but I don't need that protection because I'm willing to go out there and give this value. So it does take a little bit of awareness and mindfulness, because we often get on autopilot and self-sabotage. We get on autopilot in the way we react instead of choosing our response. And there's a big difference. So anyone struggling with adversity or hardship, you have to truly ask yourself, is it the hardship that's the hard part, or is it the story you tell yourself about the hardship?
Right.
Is the way you're talking about yourself, about your struggles, the same way you would talk to someone you love about their struggles?
Of course not.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not.
So catch, challenge, change. Catch is the idea of catching the feeling or the emotion or the thought that is negative and driving you down. Is that kind of
So I'll actually show you what I went through.
Tell me.
When I first decided to become a speaker, I wasn't charging any money, and I did probably 20 events for free. And I was like, I don't know if I'm worth the money. Boom, catch. Am I not worth the money, or have I not asked for money yet? Can I ask for money? Yes. If they say no, will I be destroyed? No. Does someone not recognizing my value decrease my value? No. So why don't you just do it? Change it. Let's try asking for money. Okay, I got my first $3,000 gig. Yeah. And then when you go from, a 4-figure to a 5-figure 30-minute talk virtually, you're like, dude, I used to get in trouble in school for speaking and now I get paid for it. Like, how is this working? But that growth comes from being aware. And my book is not about communication. My book is about self-communication. It's not about getting the upper hand over anyone else. It's about getting the upper hand over yourself, because how can you expect for other people to communicate with you effectively if you can't communicate with you effectively? Right.
Yeah. Love it, Chris. Let's change gears just a little and talk about the business and talk about the book if we could. You're speaking to, thousands, tens of thousands of people. So you're making a great impact doing that. You wanted to obviously put something in their hands, whether it's people that could come to your engagements or not. You wanted to spread your message more. So you wrote your book, The Upper Hand, and the book is doing well, and people are enjoying it. But you also wrote the book for yourself, and because you wanted it to do something for you, for your message, for your business, et cetera. Talk to me a little bit about that. Like, what was your vision? How did you want to use the book? And then maybe even tell me, how is it working for you thus far?
Yeah. So my ultimate goal, I always wanted to speak, and I started speaking, finally built my business over years. And I'm like, man, this is awesome. And then I met a few other speakers, and they're doing so many other things like consulting, coaching, having a book. And I'm like, why am I not doing that? Like, I almost feel like I was being selfish and maintaining the value that I had only for stages when I could also add value in different ways. And as a business person, I needed to make income from different streams. Anyone who works for themselves understands that you're not just going to get all your stuff from one thing, maybe a majority, but you're leaving a lot on the table and you're leaving a lot of value off other people's tables by not doing those things.
Right.
So I'm one of those few or less common people who want to speak primarily, but as an author, as a secondary. So I do now add books to talks and stuff like that to sell more books, but it's a secondary thing.
Yeah.
And to be able to utilize the social media following that I was fortunate enough to build, now I have people sharing my book, sharing the picture of the cover or sharing parts of the book and sharing quotes and becomes more viral. And that virality adds to PR and PR adds to more booking. Yeah. More booking adds to more exposure. And it's just a cycle. Yeah. And I kind of made that cycle more effective.
Yeah, I love that. I talk to a lot of authors that in many cases decided to write their book because they were losing speaking opportunities to speakers that had books. And so I know on some stages and in some places, the book is kind of the necessary next step to get you to your stage.
That's kind of, it's funny that you say that. That's kind of the dirty parts of the industry is like, you do kind of need those fluff areas, you know, PR for me, you know, being featured a 2-page spread in People magazine does a lot. Doing a TV show with The Rock does a lot. Like that definitely helps. Now that's not going to say if you don't do that, you'll never be successful. But in some areas that I dropped the ball, other areas I picked up. That's like anyone in business. We have our specialties. PR happens to be one of mine that really helped me using the book, speaking and all that. But this is a necessary step as a professional speaker. You do want a book. Yeah. You do want PR. You want those big names to refer you and recommend you. You kind of have to check the boxes to play the game.
You do. Yeah, I describe it, I call it the hierarchy of desire. The book is kind of the foundational piece. And as you go up the hierarchy, the more desirable you are, the more your ideal client, your stage that you want to get, which is a person that's booking that stage, right? It's not done magically or by machines. Yeah. It's a person that you have to impress. And so when you have the foundation of your book and then you build on that foundation, real media, like television, like Titan Games, magazines like People magazine, you know, like these kinds of things just add to your credibility and desirability. And Definitely. So, you know, now more and more people want you. Media loves media, right? I mean, you know, it's like, wow, you were on that. Yeah. Well, you got to be on this. You know?
It's competitive, and that's really what it is. So as a speaker, you know, I kind of help some people. How have you developed authority? How have you developed credibility? Yeah. Is your message, you know, something that you spent time on? You know, it's kind of a funny saying, but it's true. You can't polish a turd. Yeah. You know, I tell people, like, if your message, core message, I don't care how much PR you have, I don't care how good, you know, your cover is on your book, have a core message. Right. And it's not about being better than other authors. It's about being authentic to the message and problem you're trying to solve. Most people have a hard time identifying the problem they're trying to solve. Yeah. And if you don't have clarity in your message as an author, as a speaker, as anyone in business, you're going to really struggle to keep it together.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. Tell me, what are you working on now? And I mean that a couple of different ways. I mean that from a business perspective, but I mean that from a personal perspective. Like I loved what you shared about the little girl. Mm-hmm. You know, that shows like even while you're the speaker, you know, you still have a place to get to, right? You still are changing and working on yourself. So what's kind of next for you, or what's the stuff you're working on both for yourself as well as your business or goals, et cetera?
So for me professionally, definitely working on the back end of building that speaker mentorship in terms of perfecting crafting your message and learning the business side of things. Yeah. Working on another book already, which is going to be more of a short form book before I go to a longer form book again. Yeah. And honestly, I love speaking. So just building myself in my consulting business and slowly branching out into other things like change management and diversity and inclusion. Yeah. I have other businesses like a protein bar business and some other things in the fitness industry. Yeah. So I'm just building myself as a brand and I love it. Every day I get to add value in one facet of life that adds to my passion and purpose. So I just want to keep doing that. And I feel like I'm doing that. You know, personally, I always want to break through those barriers of the perfectionism thing is still something I battle. I almost didn't put the book out because I didn't think it was good enough.
Nice.
And the gatekeeper of not being good enough is me, has nothing to do with anyone else. So there's little battles all the time. Mental health, things like that are never just like, oh, I made it, I'm here, we're good now. There's always going to be doubt, and doubt is a good thing because it's a cautionary tale from your brain. Like, hey, make sure you dot your I's, cross your T's. But it's when we give in to doubt that becomes a problem. So that's a constant, I don't want to say battle because it's not a negative thing. It's a constant work in progress.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. It's interesting when you think about very successful people that ended badly, like a Robin Williams.
Yeah.
Sometimes the more successful you get, the more you can isolate yourself and not realizing that you still have to, you change the word battle to whatever, improve, etc. It's still a challenge that you have to face. No matter how successful you are. I mean, you're speaking in front of tens of thousands of people, but then you've got to go be with yourself, right?
Definitely. And that can be the hardest thing for a lot of people. And I'll challenge you. I don't care if you're making, $5,000 a month or $50,000 a month or $500,000 a month. If you are not happy with who you see in the mirror, what you're doing, you're not proud of your work, you're not successful.
Yeah.
You have money, but you're not successful.
I agree. And there's a lot more to life than just money, right? There is,
and money. Don't get me wrong, money is very important.
Oh yeah,
we all want it. We all want it. I think I forgot who said it. I think it was Jim Rohn. He's like, money's not everything, but when you don't have it, it seems like it is. So it's important, but other things are important too. And we tend to fixate on one thing, like I have to be this, or I have to have money, or I have to have a book, or I have to make a bestseller. Like, there are multiple facets to life, and why can't you do each of those things in due time? As long as you're putting the work and you're growing and progressing and helping people around you, isn't that success?
Yeah, I would hope so. I would certainly hope so. Chris, love talking to you, my friend. Tell us obviously people can go to Amazon to buy your book, The Upper Hand, but give us a website and social media stuff so people can know how to connect with you if they want to book you for speaking, etc.
Absolutely. My name is Chris Ruden. My website is chrisruden.com. All my social medias are just at Chris Ruden.
Yeah.
And for fellow authors, if you ever have questions or anything like that, feel free to pick my brain. Just shoot me a DM on Instagram or send me an email, and I'd be glad to respond.
Love it. Well, thank you. Well, I'm going to follow you on Instagram right away, as well as the rest of the social media stuff. And love your story. I love what you're doing, Chris. I'm really, really encouraged by the things that you shared today. And I'm sure the authors listening today will be as well. So, brother, thank you for being here with us today.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you.